Oh my God.
Oh my God!
Pleasure and an honor. Sorry. Shake his hand.
You know what? I think we're going to try this without a microphone. All right. Last night, we won the 18th state that we have competed in.
Yes.
And most people thought we could not win in Indiana, but we won. And now we're moving to West Virginia and Kentucky and Oregon. And you know what? We got an excellent chance to win all of those states. So I want to thank all of you for your help here in Kentucky. I think that we have the message that can and will win in this state. And the message is not a complicated message, because what's true in Kentucky is true in Vermont and it's true in California. And that as a nation, we have millions of people who are working longer hours for low wages, and yet almost all new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. And you know what? There are very few people in America, maybe with the exception of the 1%, who think that that is a good idea. All right? So I think that here in Kentucky, people are going to respond to that message and demand that we have a government that represents all of us rather than a handful of wealthy campaign contributors. That makes sense to people?
Yes!
Second of all, there is an issue that we have been talking about a whole lot that actually goes across the political spectrum, whether you're conservative, whether you're progressive, whether you're moderate. And that is, most Americans do not believe that we should have a campaign finance system that allows billionaires to buy elections. And what all of you should be proud of as part of our campaign is we are the only campaign, presidential campaign, that has said no to super PACs. And what we have said very loudly and clearly is that we do not represent the billionaire class, we don't represent Wall Street, we don't represent the big money interest, and we do not want their money. And what we have done, and this really distinguishes our campaign very significantly from Secretary Clinton's, what our campaign has done is reached out to working people and the middle class. And what we've said is, we need your help. And you know what's happened, which is really quite unbelievable? That over the last year since we've been in this campaign, we have received over 7.3 million individual campaign contributions, averaging $27. Averaging $27. Now, you know what's significant about that? What is revolutionary about that is not just that we have received more individual campaign contributions than any campaign in history up to this point. But what we are showing the world is when you have a strong message that appeals to working people, you know, they will put in $10 or $50. And that you can run a winning national campaign without being dependent on Wall Street and big money interest. That is revolutionary, and that's what we are showing. All right, the third area that we have been focusing on is the need to bring major reforms to a broken criminal justice system. I don't think there's anybody in America who thinks it is a good thing that we have 2.2 million people in jail today, in local, state, federal jails. And that is more people in jail than any other country on earth, disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native Americans. And what we have got to do is to reform that broken criminal justice system, among many other things. When youth unemployment throughout this country is very, very high, it makes a lot of sense to me, and I think to you, that we invest in our young people in jobs and education, not in jails and incarceration. And the other areas that we have been talking about, where's Jane?
Right here.
Where's Jane? Wherever I go, there are these signs that say Jane for First Lady, not Bernie for President. So they're right, they know who will run the White House.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you.
The other issue that we're talking about that has really, I think, been resonating all across this country, and it will absolutely happen sooner or later, and our job is to make it sooner, is the understanding that when we talk about public education today, it is not good enough to talk about first grade through 12th grade, right?
Yes.
Throughout Kentucky, throughout Vermont, we all have public schools. Some of them are good, some of them may not be so good. But we have public education in America which says first grade through 12th grade is free. Well, that was a great idea throughout the history of this country, but all of you know that the economy has changed, education has changed, technology has changed. People today need more education. And that is why I believe, and I think a majority of the American people now agree with us, that we must make public colleges and universities tuition free. And the other side of that coin is that we got millions of people, probably some in this room, who are dealing with very high levels of student debt.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what we want to do is to make sure that those people, millions of people dealing with student debt, will be able to refinance their debt at the lowest interest rates they can find.
Thank you, Bernie.
Okay? And that will be a very substantial savings. Now, one of the things about this campaign is thinking outside of the box. And what that means is people say, well, that's a great idea. You want to have public colleges and universities tuition free, you want a low student debt. How are you going to pay for that? Well, what happened 8 or 9 years ago? When Wall Street's greed and illegal behavior nearly destroyed our economy, Congress bailed them out. Well, I think that right now we should impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. That will bring in more than enough money to make sure that public colleges and universities are tuition free and that we can lower student debt. The Congress bailed out Wall Street. Now it is Wall Street's time to help the middle class of this country. Okay? Last issue, a lot of issues out there, but just the last one that I want to talk about. I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment, and I have talked to scientists all over our country and all over the world. And the simple truth is that climate change is real, it is caused by human activity, and it is already causing devastating problems in our country and throughout the world. And what we have got to do, for the sake of our children and our grandchildren, for this young man over there who's so dressed so neatly, embarrasses me here. Can I borrow that tie? No! Is that we are going to have to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy.
Yes.
Here, here.
In the process, there will be economic dislocation, and I know that. But what we have done is introduce legislation in the Senate, which is the most comprehensive climate change legislation ever introduced in the Senate, which puts $41 billion into helping workers who might lose their jobs as we transform our energy system, and also puts money into those communities that have been hit hard. So we're not going to leave workers behind. They're going to move with us as we go forward and create decent paying jobs. And when we talk about creating decent paying jobs, I know that in my state, and I'm sure it's true here in Kentucky, we have an infrastructure, roads and bridges and water systems and wastewater plants that in many ways are collapsing, many parts of this country. We can create 13 million good paying jobs by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. That will be a major economic boom here in Kentucky as well as states all over the country. And last point, when we talk about jobs, it is not acceptable to me that we have people in this country working for $7.25 an hour or $8 an hour. People cannot make it on those wages. We're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And while many of my Republican colleagues in the Senate want to cut Social Security, we have some bad news for them. We're not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security. Last point that I want to make is that our country faces very, very serious problems. You all know that. I just touched on some of them. I believe, and I think most Americans believe, that it is just too late for establishment politics and establishment economics. That what we need is to revitalize American democracy. And what that means is the creation of a political revolution. And what a political revolution is about is not complicated. It means that millions of people from Maine to California, and in Kentucky, and in Vermont, and all over this country, have got to stand up, fight back, and demand that we have a government that represents all of us and not just a handful of wealthy campaign contributors.
That's why we need you, Bernie.
And, well, it's not, we are in this, let's be clear, we are in this together. You may need me, but I need you. You know, let me repeat what I've said a million times, is that no president, I don't want to get you nervous about it, no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do it alone. What we need are millions of people. And when millions of people stand up, that is how change has always taken place in America. You know, read your history books. Whether it is the struggle for women's rights, the struggle for civil rights, the struggle for gay rights, the struggle for workers' rights, whatever the struggle is, it is always when millions of people stand up and say that the status quo is not good enough, we need change. And that's where we are at this moment. We need to deal with income and wealth inequality. We need to deal with a broken criminal justice system. We need to deal with climate change. We need to deal with poverty. Tomorrow, I'm going to be in a town in West Virginia, in McDonald County, which has one of the highest rates of poverty in America, where people are dying 18 years younger than people in wealthy counties in Virginia. Can you imagine that? So poverty is not just that you're poor, you don't have a big flat screen TV, or you're not going out to a fancy restaurant. That's not the issue of poverty. The issue of poverty is that people are dying years and years younger than other people because they're living under incredible stress, trying to figure out how they survive tomorrow, how they feed their families, how they can pay for the lights, how they pay for the rent. Now, this is an issue the media doesn't talk about, but we are going to talk about it. In this country, the richest country in the history of the world, we should not have people seeing a lower life expectancy than their parents. You all know that?
Yes, absolutely.
Unbelievable. In America now, all over the world, and in most cases in America, because of improvements in medicine, people are living longer lives. That's what we want. That's what we strive for. And yet in many parts of America now, we're seeing a lower life expectancy. Daughters are living shorter lives than their mothers. Can you believe that? And the reasons why that's happening. But a lot of that has to do with despair. People are turning to opiates and heroin. People are committing suicide. People are becoming alcoholics because they have no hope. And we're going to change that. We're going to change it. Not easy. I'm not here to tell you it's easy.
We're with you.
But if we stand together, we can in fact create the kind of nation that I know all of us know that we can be. Now, I think that what we have learned is that if we mobilize people in elections, if we have decent turnouts, if working people come out to vote, if young people come out to vote, middle class people come out to vote, we can win elections. And that's what we've done. We've won 18, won a great victory in Indiana last night. And I believe absolutely that with your help, we're going to win here in Kentucky. So I just want to thank all of you. You know, when we started this campaign, to be very honest with you, we had, almost no support here in Kentucky, but you guys have come on board in an incredible way. You're out knocking on doors and you're making phone calls, and I believe we have an excellent chance to win. So I just want to thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Uh,